Hey, we're live.
We are live.
Oh, nice.
We already have 5 likes. What?
Yeah. So we're gonna do a sound test. We'll see if the you're gonna have to turn that off.
Yeah.
What's that? Okay. Great. Got the thumbs up from the wife. She can hear us on the tablet.
So let me turn my.
Yeah, why don't you turn off your volume there? We'll get started here in a minute, guys. We got lots of visual aids for you today. We're going to be talking about electronic spark control and how the timing works and everything for turbo Trans Ams. So, what are you doing? Taking the mouse?
Yeah.
All right.
Because when the chat.
And chat goes. Yeah.
People start.
Oh, careful. Careful.
All right. 6 people.
6 people.
5 likes. One of them is me.
Oh, one of them.
Yeah. When it came up in my suggestions.
Yeah. Okay. It's a little microphone thing down there. Oh, yeah, nice. You muted it.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
7 likes.
7 likes. You got the thumbs up. You got thumbs up for good value. No, I wouldn't. Yeah, no, let's not do that.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. Okay. Oh, yeah, we got a few people coming in.
Now 8 likes and still 6 people watching.
No, as I said before, you guys feel free to ask questions by commenting on the live chat side. On my screen, it's on the right-hand side of the screen at the bottom there. It says say something. You can click down in that lower right-hand corner and type a question or anything like that. And, we're here to answer your questions too. What are you testing it? Oh, okay. Jonathan's actually going to type something in there and see if you guys can see that too.
Mine's way behind.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a little laggy.
No, I mean I'm still logged in as Fan Boss. Yeah, I think it's this one. It says live.
So what do you see?
Right. So.
Oh, on yours. Sorry, I misspoke. It looks like it's on the lower left side.
No.
Oh, okay. If you go full screen, it's on the lower left side. If you don't have it on full screen.
Yeah, if you have it like.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Cindy Keller finally made it live. All right. Congratulations, Bruce. Good to see you. You better turn that off because it's going to get feedback. All right, people are online. Well, you know what? I think Racer spells hello wrong.
I know that's a meme form. I just do.
Well, we got 12 people on, and why don't we get started? So this is hey Tony, nice to see you on there too. Let's get started. Let's talk about electronic spark control in the turbo Trans Am. So I'm going to start out with the 1980 version, and the 1980 version for all you guys out there. There's one computer, and I use the term computer like loosely. To me, it's really not a computer. So let's see if I can get it. In 1980, you have what I call, or what a lot of people call, the electronic spark control box, and the ESC box, not your escape key. The electronic spark control box is located in the center console. 1980 has a black plastic panel underneath the ashtray covering the map pocket where it used to be. And this is what it looks like. Ignore that. This is an 81. 80 and 81, the box looks identical, but they're different. You can't use an 81 and an 80. You can't use an 80 and an 81. They're year specific. Now, this little guy is mounted in the center console. It's behind that black plastic panel, and there is a wire harness attached to it, which I have a piece of one right here. This is the wire harness that would plug into it this way, and that would plug in. And if you look, if we can get that detailed in there, there is no weather pack connector. There's no pins and sockets like modern computers today. They plugged right onto the board. The board was your connection, and they had these clips that fit over that fiber board, whatever, fiberglass circuit board, and that's just basically how they did it. There That's 80s technology for you. So in 1980, this little box, this does not control boost lights. This does not control the boost. It is not here to make the turbo work. All it's doing is listening for detonation. And if it has detonation, it's going to modify the signal to the coil to retard the ignition timing to get away from the detonation. Now, I've worked really hard on this artwork today at lunch.
I was his supervisor.
Do you see that okay?
It's backwards.
No, they're going to see straight.
Oh.
It looks backwards to us. So say that again, hon? Oh, hold on one second. Can you go see what you
Yeah.
said? We're young.
Okay.
Oh, it's okay? Okay.
I will sit down now.
We're getting verification from the CFO of TTA Performance that this looks correct. But we established that in the first video. It's backwards to us, but you guys get to see it correctly. So 1980 ESC, real simple situation. We have the knock sensor. The knock sensor is mounted in the intake manifold on the 1980 turbo cars. It's in a different spot in 81, and we'll get to that when we get to 81. The knock sensor is an input to the electronic spark control box. And we're getting a reflection from the sun. So that's your input in. You're also getting an input, kind of an input from the distributor that is going to the ESC box also, because the ignition module is usually what sets the timing, other than actual physically twisting it in the engine. But the ignition module is also going through to the ESC. The ESC to me is the gatekeeper. The ESC is basically saying, look, I know you want this timing, but I got to see what's going on with the knock sensor first. If I don't get any report from the knock sensor, fine, you can have whatever timing you want, and we're going to send it out to the coil, and you're good to go. If I see something on this knock sensor, you're getting a different timing. I'm going to retard the timing, and we're going to back that off to try to get away from that detonation. It's a fail-safe. If it works pretty well. But it doesn't work all the time. Here's the biggest problem with this. The minute that little box goes bad, no spark. You're done. And this little box has caused a lot of problems with guys because I have no spark. Well, it must be the module, it must be the coil, all this stuff. And then they end up swapping out the distributor. I have a bypass board that fits in the little connector that I showed you right here, that will go in and bypass that ESC box to make it run like a standard HEI ignition that we've all known and loved since 1974. So, can you get this box? No. Nobody reproduces it. Nobody fixes it. It's a shot in the dark if you buy a used one, whether or not it works. The only way to really test it is to plug it in and see what happens. To me, it's a 40-year-old electronic device. It's just a matter of time before it goes bad. A lot of times I sell the bypass boards and people just put them in their center console just in case it goes bad. They're ready to go. They can just plug it in. As far as now, a lot of people, there's people out there to be like, well, just replace the distributor. Just replace the distributor. Get rid of that ignition of that ESC box because it's not common is what's happening. Look at us. Hey, we got a 1980 distributor right here. Okay, what's going on in the 80 distributor? We have weights and springs because we're mechanical on this deal. So the weights and springs, make sure I don't drop it on the computer. The weights and springs turn with centrifugal force. The faster this spins, the weights come out and we advance timing. And that the weights and the springs in the 80 are specific. Not only is it the weights and the springs, but also the slots the slot that's in there is specific. I've measured it. It gets about 16 degrees of advance mechanically. So when we start looking at things, where do we want to be in the timing? Well, total timing on a turbo car under boost, you really can't go any higher than 24 degrees. So if I got 16 mechanical here, and then I add in whatever on the base is usually 8 on a 1980 car, that's 24 degrees. Now, you do have the vacuum advance can here, but this vacuum advance is only coming into play when you're cruising. Wide open throttle, the vacuum advance goes away. So we're dealing strictly on mechanical when we're at wide open throttle. So that's why I say, okay, you can replace the distributor, but you don't know what you're getting. You can put it, you put a 1975 400 HEI distributor in it. Yeah, it'll fit. Yeah, it'll start up and run. But I don't know what this mechanical advance is doing. I don't know how much mechanical advance you have. I don't know when it's coming in, because these weights and springs determine when you get that full advance. And here's the key. A 1980 Turbo Trans Am full advance comes in at 2,000 RPM. That is a very low RPM range. Most of the other distributors, it's much higher than that in the RPM range. And you could be putting 30 degrees into it for all I know. You don't know what you're getting. So you could be adding too much timing to your turbo car. You could be getting the advance in way too late, which is going to make the car sluggish. That's why I always tell people, leave what you got. Leave it in there. Make sure this works, because I've had at least 4 cars that these mechanical weights and springs were stuck. You had no advance. Make sure that's all working the way it should, but just leave it alone. This is the connector here for the spark control. The wire harness that connects to this at the firewall is actually going and talking to your box. Leave that plugged in. Get the bypass board if you think the box is bad. Plug that into here. You're going to run like a normal HEI. The only other difference inside here besides this connector is the ignition module itself is actually a 5-pin. There's 2 on one side and there's 3 on the other. That's because it's hooked to this. Your typical HEI is usually what they call a 4-pin ignition module, and they've been using those for years. So yes, I highly recommend that you keep your weights and your springs and your 80 distributor. Make sure it's in good working order, all that stuff. Go with a bypass if you need to. Now, I'm going to get asked the bypass. If I put the bypass in, that means the knock sensor doesn't work. You are correct. This is where the challenge kind of comes in. I don't want the spark control box to work. I don't want it getting involved in retarding my timing, because if you retard my timing, yes, it's a fail-safe, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much. You saved my pistons, head gasket, whatever, but it also reduces power. So it's not like I want to use this. I want to have the best timing, highest timing I can get without getting into detonation at all. I don't want detonation to creep in at all. I don't want this box interrupting and getting involved, because it means things aren't right. So I always tell people, highest octane fuel you can put in them. We have, yeah, well, that's it. That requires special tuning, but yes, E85 works wonders on these cars. 93 is what we have at the pump here. Some of you guys out there, like California, stuff like that, you're stuck with 91. Highest fuel, make sure you're not over boosting. 7, 8 is usually what you can get away with on stock. And then, what's the other one that we need? Timing.
100? Oh.
No, timing. I'm like, there's a third one. You got to watch the timing. Don't jack up the timing, especially the base timing. What I like to do when I check timing on this car, yeah, you check the base, that's fine. Rev the engine up in park, 2,000 RPM, 2,200 RPM, got the timing light on there. You should see 24 degrees. That's it. Don't go any higher, because you're going to get into detonation. You can go a little bit lower if you want, just play it safe, which that's not a bad idea either. But that's where you want to be. Now, again, this is 1980 only, and for all my Canadian friends out there that has an 81 that was an export Canadian car, this is for you also. You still have mechanical distributor, all that stuff. Okay, everybody cool with the 80 platform? Maybe we got some questions for the 80 stuff we'll get to real quick. Let's see. Can you just replace the distributor from JPD 2574? Yes, like I said, you could, but I wouldn't. I would just keep what you have, put a bypass in it, and be done. Thank you, 305 El Camino, for
that's what that's
comments. I think that's what it's saying. Oh, elk. We'll just say elk.
Yeah.
Okay. People just popping in and saying hi. Thanks for
boss.
joining.
Thanks for watching, dude.
Thanks for joining. Oh, Barry and Paul are minutes away from joining us, Mr. Johnson. Bruce Johnson told us.
Well, we were at 15 for a little bit. Now we jumped up to 17.
That's good.
So I think that's them.
And don't worry, if you guys miss it, you'll be able to play it. It gets recorded. It gets posted. Mm-hmm. You guys can just come back to it and go from there. All right. That took care of the 80 mechanical system. Now we're really going to blow people's minds with the 81 stuff.
Oh, we have questions.
Oh, do we have questions? Oh, can you jumper wire from A to C to bypass the box? Jay Mason. That is correct. That's what my bypass board is doing. I'm doing it from inside the car. What Jay is asking is that you have this 4-pin connector right here. And if you look real closely on the molding of the plastic, you'll see letters on it. And if you jumper across the kitty corner pins that are A to C, it'll do the same thing as my bypass board. The reason I do the bypass board is then it looks cleaner under the hood because everything's plugged in like it should be. You don't have to worry about the wire falling out. The board is a nice solid connection inside the car. But yes, A to C here, same thing. If you really want to get advanced, you could put a 4-pin ignition module in and change all the wiring around. But yeah. I have an 80
pace car and the 81 pace car. An 81 pace car. So I'm taking notes.
He's taking notes. Okay. Take notes because there's going to be a test at the end, right?
We still need that whiteboard.
No. Get the whiteboard. All right, let's dive into 1981. This is going to be what I call the US spec car. This is car sold in the United States. They have computer command control. That was GM's name for it, CCC. So CCC cars, they have an engine controller and they have the spark control module. So there's 2 of them. They're piggyback. This is my sample was actually that way. Like that. They're kind of hooked together on this bracket. They're piggybacked off of each other. So we have the 81. This is, let's turn it around. This is the ECM engine control module. This is controlling a lot of stuff on the engine side. It's controlling the primary side of the carburetor for fuel. It's controlling, it is controlling timing. It's also taking in a bunch of sensors, information, coolant temp, oxygen sensor that's in the up pipe, throttle position sensor. There's a map sensor on the fender. Map sensor is measuring the engine vacuum or boost, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of inputs and outputs going on here. Then you have the spark control module that gets involved again. So I made another diagram for that. There we go.
Oh my gosh. Drawn with a Sharpie at like noon.
Yes. So 1981, you have the electronic spark control and you have the engine control module. So here we have the little hair dryer on top of the engine. This is our 301 turbo. We have a bunch of inputs coming into the ECM. ECM decides what it's going to do, and it gives an output for a timing signal saying, hey, this is the timing that I want based on where your throttle position is, how much load is on the engine, are you making boost or not, so, and so on. So it throws that timing output to the ESC, the gatekeeper. ESC says, wait, I need to see, do I have knock? If I've got knock, I'm modifying that signal before it goes to the distributor, and that's exactly what it's doing. So this one's a little bit trickier. The bypass board that I make for the 81 is different from the 80 because of all this other stuff going on. Let me pull the distributor for you. Here's our 1981 distributor. Now, take the rotor off. There's no weights or springs in this. She's locked solid. There is no mechanical movement in here at all. And if you look, our ignition module gained 2 more pins. Now we're at 7. And the connector is different. There is no A to C jumping on this one. The thing is, the nice part is that if the electronic spark control box goes bad, you will lose spark just like 1980, because again, the gatekeeper shut down. No more spark. But in 81, you can unplug this and the 7-pin module will go into a limp mode default deal and you'll gain spark back. But the check engine light's going to be on, and you're going to set a code, and you're only going to be running base timing. That's it. The car is going to be slow. It's going to be a dog, but it'll get you home. So that's the 81 distributor. That's the connector for it, and everything like that. Again, the bypass board, you plug it in on the same style connector, and now you will run like a normal HEI. Basically, the bypass is taking all the information from the ECM and what it wants for timing and sending it straight to the distributor. And it no longer is using the ESC. That's great because no more check engine light and you have the correct timing. Same situation though as the 80. You got to run premium fuel. You got to make sure you're not over boosting, and you got to make sure your base timing is correct. Let's talk about base timing real quick. Base timing in an 81 to set it is different from 80. 80, you would just unplug the vacuum connection and go to town and set your base timing. 81, there's two ways that you have to do it. You either unplug this, or there's a blue single plastic connector kind of over by the power brake booster, just kind of hanging out in the harness. And it's a tan wire with a blue connector. You have to ground that wire. Same thing as unplugging this. Either one, whatever's easiest. Sometimes I see this kind of buried. There's other times that it's easier just to ground the blue connector. Once you do that, check engine lights on. We're set at base timing, and we can go and set the ignition timing by rotating the distributor. 1981 requires 6 degrees advance, whereas 1980 is 8 degrees. Now, this little deal here, when it comes to 81s and the spark control box, most of the time this goes bad, you lose spark, like I said before. 81, I've had some people complain that their timing was just weird. It was off. It wasn't working right. And it was just this thing acting funny, whether it was retarding the timing. I've even had one where the guy said the engine tried to rotate and run backwards because of this. The timing was so retarded. Apparently it was firing when the piston was down and it was trying to go backwards. So I've actually had this go bad in my car, not to the point that it killed the ignition. It actually ran poorly, like no power. I put the timing light on it. And it was actually retarding timing at idle for some reason. Bypassed it, everything worked great. So pretty simple deal there. Anybody have any questions on the 81?
Brian. Hey,
Brian.
Joe, how many Transams you have at the TTA World Headquarters?
How many Transams are at the TTA World
All right,
Headquarters?
now we got to count. Now we got to do some math.
Well, yours is here, Brian. Brian has an 81 that has fuel injection on it and headers and a built motor by me with an overdrive, and it's a pretty cool ride. So what else do we got? We got Rocky. Rocky's here. That's 2, which you've seen in the other videos. We have my car sitting there with no engine. That's all we have here at the moment.
Oh, we have the orange one.
Orange one's at the shop. It's really interesting. 81 orange hardtop.
That is cool.
That's a pretty wild color. I like that color.
And then Macho.
We have Macho,
2 Machos.
2 Machos. We have Macho Turbo Macho number 4, which is currently getting some paint touch-up work done for the customer. We have a 1980 special edition black and gold that's needing to be reassembled, and we have a 78 Macho, which I'm going to talk about that one maybe a little bit later. Macho number 199, and we have an 81 SE that needs to be put back together. That is actually ours. Well, not anymore. It has a deposit on it. It's sold. So thanks for the question, though, Brian. So what else do we got?
Right.
I think you missed one, Gilbert, there.
Oh, is the distributor in the ECM ESC unique to the turbo? I have an 81 Formula 305 4-speed and had the distributor replaced today.
Okay. All right, Gilbert. Well, considering that your 81 is a 4-speed and it has the Chevy engine in it, then yes, I would say that the ECM and possibly the spark control is different. The spark control I'm not sure on. It might be the same as the turbo, but the ECM is definitely different. I'm pretty sure the wire harnesses are different too. Good question though. I'm curious. I wonder if the bypass would work in your car though. It might. It actually might. Now you say that the distributor was replaced. Was it replaced with a factory style distributor for that car, or was a different HEI installed in it? That's the question really. But thank you for the question.
Next, how does having the detonation sensor disconnected affect the ESC in an 81?
I think if you unplug the ESC, I'm pretty sure you unplug the ESC, you just don't have detonation control anymore. So it will never pick up any detonation, and it would kind of work like the bypass, except the ESC is still in the system. So it is possible that the ESC could go bad and you'd lose spark again. But unplugging the knock sensor has no effect. Now, lucky thing you brought up the knock sensor because I forgot to cover it. We mentioned that in 1980, the knock sensor was on the intake manifold. 1981, it's the same knock sensor, but it's back on the block behind the distributor. 81 is the only 301 that has that there. So a lot of times, if I'm ever trying to verify what year 301 I'm looking at, is the knock sensor back there, is the little boss cast into it, it's guaranteed it's an 81. That's the only year that does it. What other questions do we have?
Pet, is the 6 degrees base for 81 altitude specific?
Is it altitude specific? I've never really looked to see if they have. I don't think they spec something different for a high altitude car. Now, with that said, you could possibly add more timing because higher altitude, there's less density, air density. You could usually run higher boost. You can usually run higher timing and not get into detonation, whereas at sea level you would. So you could experiment with it. Just note this: if you're going to play with base timing on an 81, the problem that you'll run into, or not a problem necessarily, just recognize that the entire spectrum of the timing curve is going to be affected. It's similar to 80. Well, let me kind of elaborate. 81, we have no mechanical movement in here. So all the timing advance curve throughout the RPM range, throughout the load range of the engine, is all being done by the ECM. The ECM is what's controlling all the timing. It's all programmed into the chip in here, which is underneath this little cover here is the PROM chip, and programmable read-only memory chip, PROM chip. And this PROM chip has that PROM chip specific to Pro-Am. It's specific to the turbo car. I reproduced that PROM chip. If you need a PROM chip or you're getting an error code for the PROM chip, I reproduced that. You can still get this ECM remanufactured from most auto parts stores. It will not have the PROM chip. You have to transfer the PROM chip from this into your new one. Again, if you need one, I have one.
Wait, what are
I sell them.
What's the acronym stand for?
It's a programmable read-only memory. PR.
Oh, I thought there was an A in there somewhere.
No, there's no A in there.
Like nothing.
So, the thing is that the box itself with the board is actually the same as non-turbo. It's the chip inside that has all the information that's specific to the turbo car. So you want to make sure that you have the correct one in there, because you could technically have a non-turbo PROM chip in there and have way too much timing and getting into detonation, plus the fact that I don't think it'll read boost. But that's what you want to be careful of. So that with that pre-programmed timing curve in here, the minute you jack the base timing, let's say you go from 6 degrees to 10 degrees, you added 4 degrees of timing, but you added 4 degrees of timing throughout the entire range. So if this was already programmed to have 24 degrees at wide open throttle under boost, you just went to 28. So you got to be careful of that. Sometimes it works. The high altitude guys, it might actually work for you, but something to take note of.
Bruce Johnson, what options do you have for improving the performance on an 81 TTA with this system?
Oh, we have all kinds of stuff, Bruce. So for an 81, and I get this question a lot, which one's better, 80 or 81? I think I've answered this on other live feeds before. They both have their pros and cons. 80 is nice with having all the mechanical, because I can tweak a few items on a mechanical distributor for an 80 and change some things around. 81, I'm stuck. That PROM chip is holding me from doing any other changes. But at the same time, the PROM chip actually kind of does some of that stuff already. So as far as performance items, large downpipe, large exhaust system we have. They work on both 80 and 81. My personal 81, I've gone 15 flat at 94 miles an hour. Everybody's telling me the mile an hour is awfully high and should have been a 14-second run, possibly even a low 14-second run. Kind of agree, because I didn't get off the line very good with it. It bogged and was really slow to the first 60 feet. But all I was running the factory 81 computer. I was running a bypass board on the ESC. I was running factory 6-degree base timing in it. I had my large exhaust. I had the manual boost controller, and I had water alcohol injection. Stock carb, everything worked. No check engine light. nothing was failed as far as sensors, and it went 15.0 at 94 miles an hour at 14 pounds of boost. The boost is the big part. You know, you want to add boost, you want to keep it cool with no detonation. You're going to make, I measured 30 more horsepower to the rear wheels. That's just bolt-on stuff. We're going to see what it does now with headers, a bigger cam, bigger rocker arms. We're getting it together. It'll go in soon. What else do we have?
Jay Mason, would it be better to get rid of the distributor in the box and to steer away from detonation by using the EFI with timing control distributor dual sync, a better and safer way to get more power?
Okay, Jay, that's a good question. Yeah, I like the fuel injection. Yes, the fuel injection kits that are out there, I sell a fuel injection system kit for the cars using Phytech right now, and it works really well. And I'm actually, I mean, you mentioned the dual sync, which I believe is a Holley distributor. You could go that route. I'm working on a way to actually use the factory HEI, which I'm using the 81 that's already locked out, like we mentioned. I'm actually trying to use the fuel injection and control timing through the factory HEI rather than having to buy a distributor. And the reason that I like to try to do that is I like using factory parts. I like the fact that if you use this distributor that's already in your 81, if I go to the parts store and need to do a tune-up or I burn the center out of a rotor or something like that, I just got to tell them I got an 81 Trans Am. I need the Holley stuff. You probably have to order a Holley rotor or you have to get an aftermarket cap, which normal parts stores usually don't carry. So I like to keep factory stuff if I can and just roll with it that way. But that is a good question. Yeah, if you can control timing, because really fuel injection and controlling timing through a laptop or through a handheld computer, you can sometimes get a curve going that you can't duplicate mechanically, which could be beneficial performance-wise. But yes, I have a kit. My current Phytech kit that I sell does control timing with the HEI. Works out really well. But thanks for the question, Jay. Gavin, is it possible to get 300 wheel horsepower out of the 301 turbo and it still be pretty reliable? Good question, Gavin. 300 wheel horsepower. I'm shooting for that. I'm trying to get there. Right now, the highest I've gone is 240, and that's getting there. 300, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. It's kind of a tall order to get there. I mean, you got to have some good flow going on, a really big turbo, and try to get rid of any back pressure that's going on. I think we're going to hit the limit with the cylinder heads. I think that's going to be the holdback. There's not going to be enough flow going on through there. I mean, you can pressurize air, but you're going to get to a point where you just completely saturated the cylinder head to where it just can't flow anymore, no matter how much more pressure you put behind it. So, well, I'll keep trying. I keep trying to ratchet that number up as much as I can. We'll see where we can go with that. What's the next question here?
Nothing.
Oh, we got no more questions. Oh, well, we're done. Okay, let's just
half an hour.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about a special project that'll be in the works. So, TTA Performance.
There we go.
Well, everybody's there's a lot of drama here. We're gonna have to wait until I talk about that project. So we got another question.
Can you modify the HEI and ECM to get better responsiveness at low RPMs?
Oh, can you modify the HEI and the ECM to get better responsiveness at low RPMs? I'm sure there's a way to do it. I have a guy that makes the chips for me. That's doing the replacement chips. We talked about trying to modify the timing curve in that chip. Unfortunately, he's having difficulties with his equipment to get it there. So I don't know if it's really going to be all that beneficial or not, because it seems like the timing curve in the 81 ECM, it jumps timing up right away with very little RPM increase. So that's a good thing, because these cars do like to have some timing down low if they can get it. But like I said, usually if you're putting timing in it down low, that means you're putting timing in it up high, and it don't like it up there.
Morgan Lusk, I am at 6,000 feet elevation. Can I go higher on static compression ratio with your methanol injection and still do the 14 pounds boost?
Okay. Okay, Morgan. Yeah. 6,000 feet of evolution. Where am I? 6,000 feet of elevation. And he's asking, can you go higher on the static compression ratio? Yes, you can. Here's the key, though. When you're not going to go, it's difficult to get more compression out of the 301 due to the short stroke of the crankshaft. I actually put flat top pistons in my rebuilds, and it only bumps the compression like a half a point. So now it's 8-to-1 on my rebuilds versus 7.5 with the factory dished piston. So you can, yeah, you can add more compression, and you'll definitely make more power. You need to get some more sleep, I think. You can add more compression. Yes, the water injection would help. 6,000 feet of elevation, it'll probably take you a little while before you start seeing detonation. I think I've got one other customer that's in like the Colorado area, 5,000 feet elevation. He runs his 81 at like 10 degrees timing and 12 pounds of boost, but he's starting to get into detonation now, and he's not running water injection. So whatever the car will take and whatever the car is happy with, it depends on your combination. But yeah, I mean, anytime you can increase compression, it's going to make more power. It's just you don't want to get too high when you're running boost because of the detonation issue and all the heat that's building up and so on. But thank you for the question. So nothing right now. So let's talk about this special project. So I mentioned one of these things is not like the other in all of our projects of a 78 Macho Trans Am. And the 78 happens to be a 400 automatic car. And it originally came equipped with the HO Racing Turbo Force kit. And I don't know if you guys are all familiar with that. HO Racing was the company that sold Pontiac parts, kind of mail order performance parts and so on. And they sold a Turbo Force kit. The Turbo Force kit actually was a blow-through turbo for a 400 or 455. They blew through the Quadrajet. And they had a pressure hat. They had this little Ray J turbo off to the passenger side down low. They made a lot of changes, and they modified like the lower radiator hose and the motor mount and the timing cover and all kinds of stuff to get this turbo on there. Macho 199 was a Turbo Force car. It was one of 8 of them that were produced and sold through Mecum. And this one's the only automatic. All the other ones were 4-speeds. This car, one of my customers purchased this car wanting me to put the Turbo Force kit back on it because it's currently not on it. This is going to be a really interesting project. I'm really excited to do it because I want to see what can be done with this kit. The only thing that didn't come, the kit came in the trunk of the car, but there's a couple pieces missing. The Quadrajet carburetor is missing, which I heard there were just nothing but problems with that to begin with, which we're going to convert to fuel injection. But there was extra parts in there. There was a couple of turbos. There was a couple of Y pipes, things like that. So we're going to be working out a plan to build a 400 for it, a 78 W72 400 for it, and put that Turbo Force kit on there. And we'll probably be putting this one on the engine dyno just to see what happens. We're not probably going to run a whole lot of boost, but I'm thinking 5 to 7 pounds would probably be pretty nice for it. We got more questions that came in here.
Is the solenoid inside the carburetor and an 81 supposed to consistently tick while the engine's running?
Brooke, yeah, the solenoid is supposed to keep ticking. I mentioned about the blue connector for the distributor that you had to ground to set timing. There's another wire that's over next to the valve cover on the driver's side. That's a green wire with a green connector, and it's not hooked to anything either. That is the mixture control solenoid's dwell wire. You can actually hook up a dwell meter to it on the 6-cylinder scale, I believe it says in the manual, and you can measure how the on time of that solenoid. All that solenoid is doing is pulsing on and off super, super fast, and it's changing the solenoid position in the carburetor and moving the metering rods up and down in the jets. And that's what's richening and what's leaning the fuel mixture based on the input of the oxygen sensor. So oxygen sensor says, hey, we're running kind of lean, tells the computer tells the mixture control solenoid to stay off a little bit longer and keep the metering rods rich. And then, opposite happens then too. Why don't you close that out? Okay.
Fine.
What about
your nitrous setup?
What about your nitrous setup? Yeah, that'll get you 300 wheel horsepower probably. I only sold one and I've never installed it. My customer installed it. I might actually play with that on my car at some point. I think you can combine nitrous and boost. It'll work. People have done it. I've actually had somebody a while back, a couple of years ago, had one that had like an MSD, had an MSD fuel injection on it or something, and they ran a plate system, and he was going over 300, like 325 to the rear wheels, and he got scared and stopped. Thought he was going to scatter the motor, but it took it, and it was fine. That was kind of interesting. Maybe I'll try that at some point. Hornet 2025 says put a Hemi in it. The only Hemi I think it should go in it is the Mickey Thompson Pontiac Hemi heads. That would be pretty cool. But if you don't know what that is, you should look it up sometime.
Morgan Lusk, how did you get the 4-inch air intake in front of the battery on the Vitek car?
Trying to avoid a battery relocation kit and a non-stock hood. Okay, Morgan. So maybe it can be a little more detailed of what you're asking about, but the 4-inch air cleaner intake. So my car, if you're talking about my car, it's got that cast aluminum hat, Spectre hat that's on the carburetor. Mine's not fuel injected yet, so I was running it on the Quadrajet. It rubs the hood. It's I won't lie, it rubs the hood just barely, but it rubs the hood. I would probably recommend, if you want to use that hat rather than the factory air cleaner, I would recommend Spectre makes a low profile one. In fact, Anthony that was on here earlier, it's on his car and it works out very well for an air intake. And then I have the cone filter. I took out all the air duct out of the fender and ran you can buy the 4-inch corrugated hose and just stretch it out basically to the maximum. And I just tucked the cone filter next to the battery as close to the radiator support as I could and as down into the fender as I could. So once you take out all the ductwork, there's plenty of room there actually to put the filter. But yeah, that carb hat that I have, it's a bit tall. Oh, we have Brent on there. Hey, Brent, how you doing? On Smoking the Bandit Part 2, they used a nitrous system in 80 turbo car. Yes, they did. That's where I kind of had the idea to come up with a kit to duplicate it. My kit is different. I don't have the nozzle for the nitrous in what I call the foot of the turbo by the intake. I actually put it pre-turbo so that you're fogging nitrous into the compressor wheel to kind of cool the intake charge as you're ingesting the nitrous also. What else do we have? Jay Mason, would using an aftermarket oil cooler be beneficial for reducing turbo cooling time? I know the turbo adds 60 degrees to the oil temp. Yeah, that would be a benefit. It get kind of oh, thanks. Water assistant. See if you got that, Richard Rawlings.
Oh my.
So yeah, the only thing is that it'd probably take up a lot of real estate under the hood, and there's a lot of stuff going on because the oil drain goes right into the valley pan under the intake manifold. So if you're doing some kind of a cooler, I suppose you're probably doing a pre-cooler, pressurized oil coming out of the engine would go through a cooler and then back to into the turbo. You could do that. I know the turbo is going to heat it up. If you're trying to grab the oil out of the turbo to cool it down, that's going to be a little bit more of a challenge. It's probably doable, but you could do that, or I think you could probably add an oil cooler off of the oil filter. I think you could put an adapter on the oil filter housing, run lines to a cooler and back. That would be beneficial too, probably. Again, packaging, running all these lines, running the cooler up front. Yeah, it's just all of that stuff. But good question. Good question. Let's see. That was the last one, wasn't it? Oh, Brian. Oh, are you confident you can install that bird decal? I'm assuming he's talking about Rocky and the fact that it does not have a hood bird on it at the moment, and that we're going to be installing one. Am I confident in doing it? I mean, I do model car decals. What? It's only 25 times bigger, right? I don't know if I'm going to tackle that one, because sometimes if I can find a decal shop or somebody to put it on for me, it might be worth it to just have them do it rather than me fighting with it.
Well, we can't take a pool cover off. So
Yeah, that's a lot heavier than a hood bird.
That's true. This is true.
Bruce Johnson, will the CFO of TTA Performance make an appearance on the next edition of this great show? Maybe she'll actually chime in. We can ask her. Are they still having? Oh, Brent, are they still having the Nats? You know, we were so disappointed to find out that the Nats were canceled this year. We enjoy going to the Nats. We look forward to it every year. Yeah, unfortunately, they did cancel it for this year. There's really not too many shows going on. I know Anthony asked in the last the last YouTube. He's like, "Is there any talk of one in the Milwaukee area?" Oh, well, CFO just chimed in too. Yeah, unfortunately, the Nats are postponed until 2021. There is a show in. Let me see if I can get the city right. I want to say Arlington Heights, but that's not correct. Something Heights, something in Illinois. I just can't be there right now. August 15th, there's a car show. It's the people that the club. Let me just take a break and get my thoughts together. It's from the Cruisin' Tigers Pontiac Club. They usually have their St. Charles show, the Indian Uprising. That got canceled because they lost the venue. It actually got sold. So they went and they're having some little get together at like a park or something like that on August 15th. If you go to the Cruisin' Tigers Pontiac Club website, you'll find it there. I was actually on the Cruisin' Tigers podcast. I don't know if some of you guys saw that episode 10. We were talking with them guys and talking about turbo transams and the business and everything. It was really great. Those guys are excellent. They do great things for the hobby. Definitely great people. Brian O'Neill, I think their birds on the pillar are not on straight. I have replacements. Do you know someone who can install them correctly? Yeah, I probably do have a decal guy that can do it. Just mail them to me, Brian. Or are they in the glove box? I can. I don't know. Bruce Johnson, how much does your nitrous system use? Does it consume nitrous as fast as the methanol injection? Good question. So nitrous is rated by horsepower, how much additional horsepower it makes. That's how they jet it. I usually do like a 50 horsepower shot, real small. Mainly my nitrous system was just to get the motor up and running and getting power going and get it into boost as quickly as possible. And then once boost came on, a pressure switch shut it off so that you weren't spraying nitrous with the boost, which you could. You could throw a 100 shot at it. You could throw a 150 shot at it. That's cast pistons. I don't know if I'd be doing that. But there is that you could go higher. But yeah, right now it's just a 50 horsepower shot. As far as consuming nitrous, yeah, it's a kind of opposite of the water injection. The water injection is coming on when you hit boost. They're 9 psi of boost. Nitrous is only on when you're not in boost and you're at wide open throttle. So I would say it wouldn't consume as much as the water injection does. I would say actually a 10-pound nitrous bottle would probably last quite a while if you're just using it as an anti-lag to get things spooled up. But thanks for the question. Morgan Lust, the extra 301 turbo engine I got had oil caked. Yeah. The main problem that you're talking about, the coking of oil in the turbocharger itself, maybe even in the line too. The problem was it was probably lack of oil changes, lack of quality oil, or if it was the old school oil from the 80s, it really couldn't handle the heat. And somebody going out there and beating on the car and getting crazy with the boost and heating things up really hot and then just shutting it off. You should at least let it idle and cool down a little bit after doing some spirited driving with it. That's probably what ended up happening. And that's what happened a lot with a lot of the turbos back then. Daryl Whiteland, I hope I'm saying that right. Daryl, can I ship a car to you so you can do all the modifications? Yes, you can. There is a big waiting list at the moment. I can't even begin to tell you where that list, like how far out we are. Maybe the CFO can chime in and tell me, but she'll probably say years. But yeah, we have done that. I have a shipper that is local to me here in Kenosha. He does an excellent job. Got a beautiful enclosed trailer. It's Mike from Premier Transport. He's located in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Jonathan, you need to take more naps.
Take one right now if you want me to.
But Premier Transport, he does all my shipping. So, it's not the cheapest shipping, but it's a nice 2-car enclosed carpeted trailer. He carries great insurance. The car is going to be safe with him. Some of that ship stuff, you get online, talk to these brokers and things. It gets a little sketchy as to what's going to happen and how it's going to work out. But it is possible. We have done it. We still do it today. We can work on your car. We can install the parts. What do we got? Oh, wow, we got lots of people that are asking questions. So we got through to...
I think we got here.
Oh, Brian O'Neill, do you think I should sweat the position of the birds? They aren't that bad. I wouldn't worry about it. In fact, probably from the factory, those sail panel birds were never straight to begin with. Jose Bello, could you design adapter plates to raise the intake to use a Pontiac 350? I'm sorry.
I skipped one.
I'm sorry. Jay Mason, how can you get the turbo to be water cooled? Good question. I have a way to, if you upgrade the turbo with one of my stage 5 kits, I can get you water cooled center section. As far as where to hook it up on the cooling system, I'm not 100% sure where that would be most effective, but I can get you a coolant cooled bearing section. Do I go to Jose now?
Yes.
Okay. Could you design adapter plates to raise the intake to use a Pontiac 350 or 326 off the original 301 setup while not getting any heavier block to make the front end any heavier? No. The simple answer is no. Could it be done? Yeah, it could be. Here's the situation. So there's so much uniqueness to the 301. It's almost like Pontiac went out of their way to make sure it doesn't share anything with 326 through 455s. So the shorter deck height makes the intake manifold narrow. And so now you're stuck with using the 301 intake manifold. But the 301 intake manifold does not have conventional intake ports. So now you're stuck with the 301 heads. Well, the 301 heads don't have conventional Pontiac coolant ports. So they don't quite line up with the 301, or sorry, with the 400 or 326 block. So it gets into this snowball effect where it's not a bolt-on deal. It's very difficult to do. And then if you do overcome the obstacles of putting the turbo kit from a 301 onto a 326 through 400 or 455, the turbo is way too small. I mean, it is just going to be a restriction on even a 326. Yeah, you could upsize the turbo, but I'm thinking that really you'd be farther ahead if you just do a custom turbo kit on a conventional Pontiac V8. And if any of you guys are looking to do that, I may be able to help out with that. Thank you for the question, though. Where are we at? Oh, Bruce Johnson. I may want to do that. I like the way it comes in at the start and then cuts off when the boost kicks in. Let's talk next week. Okay, Bruce, you got it. Jose, thank you, Jose. We will try to keep up the good work. How long should you let it idle after hard driving to avoid coking? I would say anywhere from a minute to 3 minutes. A minute should be fine. The thing is, when you're idling down, things are cooling down, the exhaust is cooling down, you're getting oil still pumping through the turbo and everything. A minute and a half should be plenty, especially if you're using a really good quality oil. In today's oils are much better than they were back in the day. Okay. Brooke Pitt, what is the upcoming work that will be posted on the next Rocky video? Excited about the series. Oh, thank you for that, Brooke. I'm trying to debate on where I want to start with Rocky. There's so much that's going on here and also so much with the car that the car needs. It's like, where do you start? Do you do performance stuff? Do you do exhaust? Do you just put tires on it because the tires are really old? It needs interior work. I'm thinking it's going to be on the fuel side of things. We're going to get the carburetor worked on, the power enrichment valve worked on, and we're going to start checking everything out dialing all that part of it in. And then most likely, unless I get it scheduled for upholstery for the headliner and the carpet, it's gonna get the exhaust chopped off, and we're gonna do the exhaust. What do we got? Brian O'Neill says, yes, have Mike pick it up if you want to ship the car here. Brian has had Mike ship his cars. He's very happy with it. I had several customers that had their cars shipped.
Aren't they all shipped with Mike?
No. The Tommy's California 80 pace car was when it came here. Actually, when it came here and left, it was not shipped by Mike because Mike will not go to California. Sorry, everybody out there on the left coast. He doesn't do California. West, left. Well, you look at the
west, left, same. Yeah.
The CFO is saying that as far as scheduling for a car, well, I'm just going to answer that real quick. So as far as scheduling a car to come here to be worked on, she's saying November with a question mark. I've been using 1540 Rotella. What do you suggest? Exactly that. The only reason I say that, Rotella is a diesel oil. Most diesels are turbocharged, so I thought it would be good. Rotella, rumor is that it has more zinc in it for the flat tappet camshafts. That's what I use, the 15 weight 40. The cars are old, they're getting a little worn out. Clearances are getting a little bit bigger, so the 40 weight, especially in the summer months, is good. 15 weight, when it's cold, it still flows pretty decent. That's what I've been using in my cars. Brian O'Neill, oh yeah, Mike is the best, super nice guy. The extra 301 turbo I bought had thick oil sludge on the valley pan. Morgan is stating this. Turbo had a Garrett rebuild tag, no oil stain on the vanes, and end play was 3,000. How can I tell if the turbo is leaking? So you're saying that let's see if I can understand this. When we bought the 301 turbo, it had thick oil sludge on the valley pan. So there's some areas that oil can be leaking. You have the drain tube that goes down into the valley pan. That's just snugly fits into a rubber seal. There is a flange on the bottom of the turbo that has a gasket. So that gasket could be leaking. The tube is actually threaded into the flange, so the tube could be loose. There is a seal where the bearing housing attaches to the compressor housing. There's like a rubber O-ring seal on there. And I had one turbo that a customer told me about that it was leaking between that O-ring actually, and oil was coming out there. So it's possible the turbo itself could be leaking the oil externally.
Morgan, can I use thermal heat wrap on up or down pipes? Some people say the pipes will rust.
Okay, can I use thermal heat? Can you use thermal heat wrap on up and down pipes? Yeah, you can. There's a crossover pipe underneath should have a heat shield already welded to it from the factory. Most of the time they rust off. I've seen people wrap them. You can. Yeah, the part about them rusting is sometimes you could get moisture trapped in the cloth or fiberglass the wrap that's in there, and that could cause some rusting. Most of the time our cars are not driven in all weather conditions as daily drivers to where that would really be a problem. And with all the heat so close to the engine there, it should dry them out pretty good. The bigger question is sometimes you get into a problem where too much heat is trapped in there. You could develop cracking. I haven't really seen it. The other thing that's why I'm a little leery about doing it is that if you do leak some kind of combustible fluid on it, it soaks into that. So like, for example, transmission fluid is very flammable. If that soaks into that heat wrap and gets hot enough, it could start a fire. Even though it's a flame retardant material, the oil itself could burn. So you could do it. It does help. Anytime you can contain the heat inside the pipe, it's going to make the turbo more efficient. It's going to keep the underhood temperatures lower. There are benefits to doing it, but yeah, you could do it. What else do we have?
Ryan, I might need a 1980 console block off plate. Do you have any?
Do I have any console block off plates?
No.
Not at the moment. I am working on them. I just saw a prototype picture of it's molded off of an original block off plate. And now I know Dave Hall at Restore Muscle Car is 3D printing them, and they're actually pretty good quality too. I heard maybe the texture is a little bit off on the 3D printing. I'm not sure. I don't have one, but mine are molded off of an original. We're using a non-boost light panel, and then we'll just cut the hole if you do have boost lights. And I'm going to have a different way of attaching it though, rather than the typical clips that break off. But yes, it's in process. It's the same guy that makes my 81 console door clips. Excellent quality. Highly recommended because you did them, Brian.
We've officially reached 1 hour.
Yes, we have. Hey, well, we'll keep going as questions are still being asked.
Brian O'Neill, Mike has shipped my car numerous times. Great safe
Safe
Setup for hauling.
Yes, it is. And one of the key things is that what I like about it is if Mike ends up overnight somewhere, it's a 2-day drive or something like that. He's actually he's got sleeping quarters in his trailer. So he sleeps with the cars, which is kind of funny because you can't get any safer than that, right?
So, Jimmy Mason, how much would it be? How much would be the Stage 5 turbo? Okay.
How much would be the Stage 5 turbo with water cooling, and how long would it take to receive it? I'd have to look it up. I'm gonna guess that it's around $1,800 for a Stage 5 turbo, ceramic coating on the exhaust housing, and
I'm sorry.
cover your mouth there. So it's probably around there for that center housing with the coolant passages in it. What else do we have? Oh, I bet yours will be the best. He's the best. Brooke Pitt, a ride in the Mercy would wake up Epic Racer. Brooke Pitt is the owner of the Black Mercy.
Yes. Yes.
Brooke Pitt, you have an amazing collection. I mean, I know people that have multiple Trans Ams. None of them have a Lamborghini like you do.
Yes. That car is awesome.
That was a really cool picture.
That was really cool.
All right. Well, let's see. There's anybody else on there? Still got 21 people watching, but
yeah.
Wow, the CFO wants to make an appearance. Do you want to give up your seat?
Yeah, sure.
I'll just say hi.
Oh, you're just gonna say hi. This is my wife,
everybody.
She's in the other room making sure that everybody can hear us just fine, and behind the scenes producer, doing all that stuff.
Producer.
Yeah.
Let's see, producer, director, everything.
Yeah. All right. Well, what else do we got going on? So we got. Hopefully, we'll get to Rocky soon. Yeah, just trying to think. My car headers are on, and the piping's all welded up. I had to put new motor mounts in it because we had a bad motor mount on the driver's side. Which, if you've never done that, it takes 2 people to do it. It's not the easiest thing. But new motor mounts are in. Just going to get everything ready to go with the transmission mounted up and all that stuff, and hopefully get it set into place soon because I'm really wanting to race that car again and take it out there because I think there's easily a 14-second time slip in it.
Yes.
Little 14-second time
yes.
slip. So that's what I'm hoping for. Bruce Johnson, I'm sure you're excited about my car too. Yes, I'm very excited about Macho 199.
You're excited about all the cars.
Really, every car that comes here, I'm excited about. Do some more videos showing your cars that you're working on. Yeah, I'll try to do that. You guys tell me. I mean, if you guys want me to run a video on your car, let me know. I don't like to put people's stuff out there on the internet. Some people like to stay private, and I totally respect that. But if you're okay with me running a video on it, and YouTube video on it, I'll do it. That's fine. Just let me know. I'm thinking we should do on the website customers' rides. I think that'd be pretty cool. Just photos of all our customers' cars. I think that'd be a pretty neat addition. It's just getting the time to update the website to do it. Yeah, Brian O'Neill, love those machos. Yes, there's going to be quite a few. Oh, the CFO's yelling again. The table.
Yeah.
Okay.
What? Their car photos, and I'll put them on.
Oh, okay. The CFO is saying, send in photos of your cars. Email them to us at TTA Performance@gmail.com, and we'll get them added to the website Readers Rides page. I'm thinking about actually putting, a little list underneath of what mods or performance parts are installed on the cars. Brook Pit, I have a bad driver's motor mount too. Maybe changing the mounts on Rocky for a future video to show how to do it. Yeah, I've always done it with the engine out, so I don't know how hard. It'd probably be pretty hard and difficult to do it with the engine in it. I'm assuming you'd have to definitely raise the engine up and take the motor mount bracket off, which I think you have to remove the exhaust manifold to get the motor mount bracket off the block. Oh, that would not be fun. Not fun at all.
I don't think you'd want to see that
Video, Brooke, because I got a feeling I'd have to edit and bleep out all the cuss words to where it sounded like R2D2 did the whole thing.
That's true.
Yeah.
Tim Mason, have you driven a turbo car with a 204R transmission?
Jay, yeah, 204R. Love that transmission. Actually, Brian has it in his 81. I have a customer in Michigan, Henry Hoffman. His car has the 204R. You couple that with a 342 rear gear ratio, that is a great combo right there. I definitely like the overdrive. I have one earmarked for my car. I just don't want to put it in yet. It requires more money as far as a transmission cross member and the cable for the throttle valve cable, or shift kickdown cable and stuff like that. So I'm holding off on putting the 200 in my car yet. I want to see where I can go with the turbo 350 first. But I love the 204R. It's a great, easy swap to get overdrive. It's just a little difficult finding that transmission because they only made it from 82 to 90, and most of the time, you have to ignore the Chevys because in that time frame, unless it's a Monte Carlo SS or a big square body Chevy station wagon that has the Oldsmobile engine in it, anything else with a Chevy engine gets a 700 R4. So that's not an easy swap.
Brian, you can show mine at any time you like.
Okay, Brian, we'll show off your car on a future YouTube video. Morgan Lust, with the 252 cam, I think you said it won't pick up power unless the other power adders are done. Do I also have to pull the plenum and up-down pipes off and readjust instead of torquing to 20 foot-pounds? Good question, Morgan. I would recommend trying to see how close you are to torquing the nut if you do the adjustment. If it seems like, another quarter turn or half turn, I get to the locking point where I can torque it, then go ahead and torque them. You might be able to get away with that. I'm just worried that torquing them might push the plunger down too far into the lifter. I recommend going with an adjustment and just doing the adjustment on it. But the reason I say that swapping the cam won't pick up any power is because that's not where the bottleneck is. I want to put it into an analogy, but I don't know if it's going to make sense. I'm not going to try it on the cuff. But basically, the cam does help. It's putting more air in and out of the engine, but when the air is going out of the engine and going into a very restrictive stock turbo, your gains are going to be minimal. Now, if you have that cam, and then you have like a stage 5 turbo or even my stage 3 turbo, and you got really good free-flowing exhaust and stuff like that, yeah, you're going to see more benefits from the cam then. So if you want to put the cam in because you're going to be doing more modifications later, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you got a wiped out cam and you're looking to put a cam in it. Put that one in it. Why not? Jose.
Would you change the transmission from the stock 350 to 200 R4?
Faster top speed with a different gear ratio. Stock top speed was 116. What do you think is the most you can get? Well, I've gotten 135 in Gran Turismo
on a video game. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Great.
Okay, so Jose's question is about having a stock turbo 350 versus a 204R, in that the overdrive would give you a higher top speed. Stock top speed was 116, probably RPM limited at 116. What do you think the most you can get? My customer, Henry Hoffman, he is a daredevil. He took his fuel injected, overdrive equipped, 342 rear geared turbo Trans Am, running on E85, making 240 horsepower to the rear wheels with a stage 5 turbo, and has had it up to, I believe, 130, 135 maybe.
Aha. The
And-
game's right.
Right, the game doesn't have a turbo motor.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
He's
It's not
actually
turbo.
he's actually taking it up that high. And his car's got a lot of suspension modifications on and stuff too.
But he said it with that stage 5 turbo and everything, he's like, it just kept pulling and it just kept going, didn't even stop.
So what does the speedometer go up to?
He's got a converted,
Oh, the kilometer one?
it was a kilometer speedometer head that was a Canadian one for that went to 140 kilometers, and he had it recalibrated into miles per hour. So he has a 140 mile an hour 81 speedometer.
I was going to say, is it just like pegged?
It's probably almost buried, yeah. And who knows, he might have run out of road. I don't know.
Yeah. All right.
Bruce Johnson, you could do a show on your numbered TTA cars. I don't have them anymore though. Bruce, you have 2 of them. I can do one on the next one that you're gonna get. Bruce Johnson is talking about. He requested that any cars that TTA Performance has owned, modified, and sold be numbered, and he currently owns TTA number 2, and which is an 80 Indy 500 pace car. He owns number 3, which is an 81 Daytona 500 pace car. And he's about to own number 4, which is an 81 SE. Number 1 is my 81 SE.
That should be 000.
Some people say that. Yes, Brian O'Neill's car does have a 204R overdrive in it also. It, again, same thing. And in fact, Brian's car has a stall converter in it too. So it kind of revs up a little bit before it takes off. And it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. I definitely like the 200.
Bruce, I'll help you put the hoodboard on your car.
Oh yeah, come on by.
Jose, can I order the Turbo Boost shirts?
Oh, the
Got boost.
the Got Boost shirt. Yes, you can order those. Just send me an email. They are $25. Unless you need like a double or triple XL, then I think there's another $5 or something like that. But yeah, just send me an email if you're interested in the Got Boost t-shirt.
Right, and the overdrive on the way up value was glorious.
Yes. Well, it was when I drove it down to you too, Brian. It works great.
Is there a stroker available?
Oh, you can hear Jonathan better if he backs up? Yeah. Okay. Is there a stroker crankshaft available for the 301? No, there's not. It does have the same 3-inch mains as the 400. The only problem is the thrust bearing is half the width of a 400. And although you don't even have to turn it down, it fits. The 400 crank will fit in the block. Just the main, you end up, it's a really goofy deal. You end up with a 400 main cap having to be used on the block, but on the block side, you only have half that width. So you got a full width on the top and a half width on the bottom, and then you got to make a spacer to use a 400 bearing. It's been done, but the real challenge is then dealing with the short deck height of the 301. Now you have this long stroke and a short deck height. You need a really short rod or a really short compression height piston, and that's where you run into trouble. You end up with a piston that the wrist pin is in the oil ring just about, and it doesn't really help out. But that's our only options right now. Morgan Lusk, how's the conversion intake manifold coming with good heads? It should RPM like a 302 Chevy. Yeah, I agree. That, I mean, the heads are restrictive, and that would be awesome. The intake thing, there's a lot of warpage from the aluminum and all the welding. I don't know if it's usable or not. I have a customer that wants me to send it to him so he can use it. We're waiting on copper conversion head gaskets to be made. They're kind of on back order. It's my own design, but I'm thinking about possibly making an intake out of steel so that I can weld it. Maybe it won't warp so easily, but we'll see where it goes. But it's definitely a possibility. Something we plan on doing. Jay Mason.
I actually have a 204R, one out of a Grand National, and the other out of a Monte Carlo.
SS. Both good transmissions. The Monte Carlo SS 204R and the Grand National 204R are excellent transmissions to use. They have great valve bodies in them, great shifting capabilities. The biggest thing is that they have a governor that works so much better. In fact, they might actually delay the upshift past the RPM range of a 301. I believe they shifted into 5 to 5,500 RPM range at wide open throttle. The problems that I've always run into with the other 204Rs out of basic everyday cars like station wagons and Cutlass Supremes is that they wide open throttle shift too fast, and they really shift too fast when you change the rear gear and you have 342s in them. So you have to modify the governor weights and springs and do some other things to try to get the shift delayed. In fact, we're going to be working on that with Brian's car. We got it worked out okay, but it's still a little too early on the shifts. So we're going to experiment with some more modifications to the governor to get that shift a little bit later. Problem is the governor, you have to take the transmission pan off to get the governor in a 204R. And so it's, if anybody's going to be doing a 204R out there and want to do the conversion, put a drain plug in the pan immediately. This way, then you can save the fluid. And if you got to go in there and want to make adjustments to the governor. Okay.
Brian, how much
have you
done with the E85?
We've only done one car with the E85. That was Henry Hoffman's car with Vitec fuel injection.
Oh, we did one more.
No, that's the only one that did E85. I plan on doing it with my car. I was going to experiment doing it with a specially built quadrajet that I made and try to run E85 with a carburetor before I go to fuel injection. Unfortunately, then the head gasket debacle happened. So we couldn't test that out. But
Holes in the driveway, things pouring smoke out the fenders.
So the E85, we don't have a lot of experience with it in the 301, but it definitely makes more power with it. It is a nice fuel. The question then becomes, though, how abundant is it? How many gas stations do you have near you that offer E85? That it's not. Vitec doesn't have an option for doing. What do you want to call it? Flex fuel, where you can mix your ethanol percentages and have it accommodate for it. It doesn't have that capability. A Holley Super Sniper does. I believe Super Sniper does. One of them had a ethanol content sensor, could be hooked up to it, and you can make adjustments that way. But it was the higher end Holley stuff, which is a little more expensive.
Brian, what turbo is on my car?
Brian, what turbo does Brian have?
Oh,
I'll have to look it up.
Oh, wait, what am I doing? I skipped one.
You skipped one. I think you have the basic upgrade, Brian. I don't think we put a stage 3 on yours. I think yours is the basic upgrade with the clipped exhaust wheel. What was the one you skipped?
Is the turbo engine crankshaft unique to the turbo engine, or any 301 crank is the same?
Good question, Morgan. According to Pontiac, the 301 turbo was supposed to have a special turbo crankshaft in it that where the bearing surface met the edge, it had more of a radius in there to relieve any stress possibilities. There's a stress reliever there. I don't know for sure. I don't see it by the naked eye. I got a feeling that never happened, possibly. It can be added. If you have a competent crankshaft grinding machine shop, you can request that, hey, if the crank needs to be ground 10 and 10, can you put a bigger fillet in that corner? And you can basically make your own. As far as material, there's no difference. They're both cast iron.
All right.
Can you
Daryl, you ship everything to me that you do on the 301Gs. Will I need help from you to install them?
It depends on what you're looking for, Daryl. As far as he's asking if I can ship the parts to him. Yes, we do ship parts all the time. Depending on the parts that you're looking to do. Yeah, I offer tech support on the stuff. Depends on what your comfort level is as far as mechanical ability of what you want to do. Exhaust requires some welding and trimming. The fuel injection, there's some parts that need to be machined, or you can have me machine them for you and send them with, like if you want to do fuel injection or anything like that. Fuel injection gets full tech support from me, helping you out with that, getting the tuning and so on. But yeah, I mean, just give us a call, drop us an email, and we can hook you up. Just depends on what you're looking for. Can my car be grandfathered in since you rebuilt it from the ground up?
Where are you reading that?
Grandfathered in how? I guess I'm kind of confused at what you're asking there.
Jose, can you use the 77 through 79 speedometer that read 100 or the?
Oh, that's the CFO just instructed me that Brian is looking to have his car numbered. No.
I never owned your car, Brian.
Oh,
I can get you a special.
decal that will actually, say tuned by TTA Performance or something to that effect.
oh, that'd be cool. Yeah. Yeah, because there's decals and stuff in Adventure as well that are tuned by blank or something. So, Jose, oh yeah,
Jose.
can you use the 77 through 79 speedometer that read 100, or the 72 through 77 that reads, I think, 160?
I know what he's saying. The font is different on the numbers. I think they fit into place. The 160 gets a little weird. Something about like a fasten seatbelt light or something to that effect. But I do know that the spectrum and the numbers and the font is different on those ears. What is the weight of a 301 turbo engine? I saw one spec that said 570 pounds. I've never weighed one. It could be that. 570, yeah, it could be around there. It's still a little dark. We're trying to make a lighting change as the sun is going down over here. You want to try turning on the light over there? Sure. Yeah, it's glowing. Well, I think mom's is better, but that's good. That'll work. It looks better. Okay, sorry about that. Where are we at? Weight, yeah, 570 could be around there. Can you put a 4-speed behind the 301 turbo with your conversions?
Read my mind.
Yeah, we can do a manual trans conversion. I have a steel billet flywheel available for the 301's got a special balance compared to 400s and everything. In fact, in 79, there is a 301 4-speed option. Obviously, 79, there was no turbo, but you could get a 79 4-barrel 301 with a stick shift with a 4-speed behind it, and it had a special balanced 301 4-speed flywheel. I have a billet steel aftermarket SFI flywheel that is custom balanced for a 301 to do the conversion. I've actually sold a couple of them. In fact, Bruce Johnson has a turbo macho that will probably be doing a manual conversion on it, on that car, turbo car.
Morgan Lusk, any general suggestions for high altitude operation other than perhaps more ignition lead?
More boost. You could probably get away with more boost. More timing, most likely, being in the higher altitudes. See, that's the great thing about having a turbo in high altitudes. In high altitudes, you have less air density. You have less atmospheric pressure. The turbo makes its own atmosphere. Crank it up. See what it does. You get to that point. I mean, it's going to detonate on you if you go too high, obviously, but you can probably go higher than stock if you're in a very high altitude.
Morgan Lusk, what is the E85 conversion process?
E85 conversion process, if you're using fuel injection, it's mainly, just a blanket statement is 30% more fuel. We increase the cubic inch 30%, start from there, and make other adjustments to make the drivability better. If you're carbureted, I haven't successfully tried it yet. It's definitely changing jetting and so on to make it run richer. The E85, and you got to measure the ethanol content coming out of the pump, because like around here it's mainly E70, especially in the colder months. But the more ethanol content, the more fuel you need, and the richer it has to run. So that's where you basically just have to add a lot of more fuel, and then you got to have compatibility in some of like the hoses and things like that. I don't know how true that is, but you probably want to take precaution with it if you're going to do the E85. One thing I do want to note, when you're running E85, one of the issues that you might run into is the plenum underneath the carburetor. Make sure that coolant hose is hooked up, because if it's not and it stays too cold, alcohol won't evaporate out of there, and you'll actually have fuel puddling, and you'll cause all kinds of drivability problems with that. So E85 does require a little bit of heat to, kind of evaporate it.
I have a question. Yes. It may seem kind of like a stupid one, but so you 85 or E85, which stands for 85% ethanol.
Yeah.
What's the other 15%?
Gasoline.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's what I figured, but I was like, are you sure? I don't know. All right, where were we?
Jose.
Do you remember they had a 303 Pontiac engine? Was that a one-off. I heard it was like the 301 but made for racing.
So the 303 back in, I think that was 69, that was part of the Ram Air projects. I think they called them like Ram Air 5, 6, 7, something like that. There was a short deck 303 that they made. I think it was designed for SCCA competition because they were limited to 5-liter displacement. From what I understood it, they had the 303 short deck, and then they kind of started with that for the 301, but they made so many different changes to it to make it the 301. It's really not a 303, not anymore. And especially the crank, because I think they had a bigger bore on the 303 and a shorter stroke crank. I think it was less than 3-inch stroke compared to the 301.
Morgan Lusk, can I do a one white what?
Morgan, can I do a one? I think you meant one wire higher amp alternator on an 81 pace car and not throw the electronics or voltage gauge. Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. Usually, you're not going to hurt anything with higher voltage. I mean, unless you can't put 24 volts to it, let's put it that way. But most of your single one wire, the higher amperage, the alternator is only going to put out amperage that's required. So depending on what you have going on, if you're running some high amperage draw items like an electric fan and stuff like that, yeah, the alternator will just start upping the amperage and supplying what is needed. But if you're not running anything with high amperage loads and high amperage draw, it's not going to put out that amperage, so it's not going to hurt anything. But good question.
Jay Mason, can you elaborate on the E85 carb setup, and will you offer this on your website?
So I took a quadrajet and modified the jetting and some air bleeds and things like that to hopefully richen it up enough to run E85. I buy all the rebuild kits for the quadrajets that I rebuild through Cliff Ruggles, which a lot of people know Cliff through the Pontiac community, that he is, Mr. Quadrajet. And his rebuild kits, everything in them is ethanol rated. So nothing will deteriorate from ethanol alcohol in them. So that part of it is good to go. The gaskets, the seals, all that. It's just a matter of richening everything up. I'm experimenting with some different ways of doing it, like taking the metering rods out and running jet only. I'm trying to make it a dual fuel carburetor so that you can make changes externally to convert back to gasoline without having to dive into the carburetor. That's what I was really trying to do. I wanted it to be, just in case somebody runs the E85, they're running it on the quadrajet. Oh, I need to get gas. I can't find an E85 station near me. Hey, change out this. Now you can run 93 in it. That was my goal for it. I probably will try it on my car before I go fuel injection with it, just to see if it's doable. And yeah, I'll offer it as a service then for you guys. It'll be on the website then too. What else? Morgan Lusk, what kind of blow-off valve could I use to sound like the annoying kids always lifting their blow-off valve prematurely, no pun intended? Sometimes they sound cool.
Is he talking about the guy with like the Focus?
Yeah, well, not the gurgling that's happening when he goes by. No. So you get the whoosh of air every time you let off the throttle.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, you can't do that with our cars, and here's why. Our throttle blades are in front of the turbo. We have a draw-through turbo system, so you don't have this buildup of pressure in the turbo when you snap the throttle shut. In a blow-through application, the reason you have a blow-off valve is that, see, we should have got the whiteboard.
I told you.
In the turbo application, no, that's fine. Okay. In a blow-through turbo, you're blowing pressurized air through the throttle blades. And then when you snap the throttle blade shut, when you let off the throttle, the turbo is still spinning and producing boost. Well, now it just hit a brick wall and it's back building all this pressure, and it'll make the turbo chatter. So they put this blow-off valve on there. It's just a pressure release. It opens on engine vacuum. So the minute you snap the throttle shut and it opens the blow-off valve, it just releases all that back pressure that could potentially go back into the turbo. On our cars, we're not blowing through the throttle body or through throttle blades. The throttle blades are actually controlling the amount of airflow going into the turbo. So there's no back pressure, there's no back, but you snap the throttle shut and it's all it does is cut off the air supply to the turbo and the engine goes into vacuum and there's no way to put a blow-off valve on our cars. Now, if you want to convert to blow through and run a blow-off valve in an intercooler, let me know. I probably could make something up for
I
your
think that's
301.
part of the next question. Can
Yeah.
an intercooler be used in the Pontiacs that like the other imports
Used.
Do you prefer a 3-core factory radiator or aluminum?
Okay, Jose. Yeah, so can an intercooler be used on our cars? Unfortunately, no. Again, due to the whole draw-through application, because the carburetor is in front of the turbo, we're drawing in air and fuel, and there's fuel being compressed into our turbo. So trying to put air and fuel that's already pressurized through the intercooler, there's the potential that you could condense the fuel back to a liquid. Plus the fact that there's just I mean, that's bomb-making material of having pressurized air with fuel mixed into it outside, running around, under the hood and things like that.
Yeah, I guess that is.
That's why I have the water injection. The water injection is chemically intercooling. We're dropping intake temperatures by spraying in a methanol and water mixture to kind of chemically intercool everything. So unfortunately, unless we convert to blow-through, there's no way to use the intercooler. You do mention about a factory radiator. The factory turbo radiator, copper brass construction, is a 4-core radiator. It had heavy-duty cooling from the factory. That is a great radiator. It works very well, especially when it's all cleaned up and everything's flowing the way it should, and there's no restrictions and no debris or dirt, crud in the engine block or in the radiator itself. When you move to an aluminum radiator, then you could probably drop down to 3-core because the aluminum ends up being able to reject heat a lot more efficiently than copper brass. But yeah, either one of them works very well. Wow, Morgan Lusk. With the conversion manifold completed and better heads on that, eliminate the manifold mounted turbo, and externally mounted blow-through turbo will be required. It wouldn't be required. I'm trying to work it so that you could still use the factory look of the draw-through turbo, but just with the better flowing heads and intake manifold, and try to take advantage of it that way, because a lot of people don't want to modify the look of the car and the look of the engine. For the best performance, yeah, blow-through with an intercooler would probably be better, especially with the cylinder heads. I think you could have potentially a 400, 450 horsepower 301 doing that.
See, I wonder what it would look like with turbo partially sticking out of the hood. Like I'm not saying we should do that, but I at least want to see what that would look like.
I'd like to put the pipe out the hood.
Oh yes,
Pipe out the hood.
Like the snorkel, or not snorkel, whatever it's called.
Yeah,
I forget what it's called.
Okay, well, I think we're gonna wrap it up here, guys. I
Hour and a half.
appreciate, hour and a half. We went half hour over what we usually do.
Well, no, the other ones are about an hour 20, I think.
Are they really? I don't even think they're that high. I think they were more like an hour.
Guess what I'm doing after the stream?
But appreciate you guys joining and asking your questions and everything, and listening to us jabber on about 301 turbo stuff. And hopefully you understand and are fully educated about how the ignition system works on 301 turbo. And let me know what you guys want to see in these live streams, as far as if there's another area of the 301 that you want me to describe and talk about, and so you can get more familiar with it. I'm always looking for suggestions, kind of running out of stuff to talk about for the engine itself. But take care out there. Jonathan, you want to take it away for
Sure.
Back up?
Yeah.
Make sure you can hear you. Talk nice and loud.
Yes. All right. If you enjoyed the stream, make sure you leave a like. And also be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss any more videos. And while you're at it, enable those post notifications so you know earliest of early when a new video comes out. And if you're interested, it will be coming out with a new series on the YouTube channel called Van Boss Command Block Creations in Minecraft. So hope you all enjoyed, and we'll see you all next
Thanks,
time.
guys.